I just tell the truth, and telling the truth is crazy in a world full of lies.
Hello guys, welcome to the Meal Press, a time capsule for anything Bible related. We just finished last week our series on the book of Esther. After 12 weeks, we were able to break down each individual chapter in the book of Esther and relate it right back to Jesus. However, amidst the whole 12 weeks, the constant questions you guys brought up was in reference to marriage and dating. We then release our modern episodes every other Monday discussing dating, marriage, and feminism in an attempt to answer your questions, but still you guys wanted a little bit of a further breakdown. After some time praying and considering what should be next, we finally have decided to go to our new series opening and starting today, Covenant, where two become one. This is going to be a series where we're going to break down the biblical model of marriage, divorce, and covenant to understand its intent, the purpose, the having of all these three things: marriage, divorce, and covenant. The inner workings of marriage, the justification, repercussions of divorce, the complexity that comes with joining your life with someone else. This is where we're going to discuss our new series, Covenant. Now, if you have been following, you know I'm very big about the numbers, the statistics. What is the truth of what is going on today? So I figure we start with some numbers so that way you guys can grab a bit of a grasp on what it is that we're dealing with today in today's society. 41 to 50% of marriages do end up in divorce, and yet 2/3 of those people that divorce go on to remarry yet again. Surprisingly, when you remarry, your divorce rate goes up to 60%. And if you happen to, again, divorce from that second marriage onto a third, the divorce rate goes up to 73%. It seems like changing and adding and divorcing and marrying again is not the solution. It's just a higher risk of you guys just divorcing. Nonetheless, all this information has been provided by the Institute of Family Studies. Now, you may be telling me, okay, Ariel, that may be all fine and well, but that doesn't apply to me. I am looking to get married. I'm looking forward to get married. You're right, because according to the Pew Research Center, they conducted a study where they took age group 18 to 34-year-olds, and they discovered that a solid, staggering 69% of people wanted to get married someday. However, they are delaying that which they desire because of one thing. They are prioritizing higher education, higher salary. Basically, they want to be more economically stable, which is valid, right? Because right now in this society, because of inflation, because of everything that's going on, it is expensive to maintain your cost of living. So it does make sense that you want to now pursue a higher education so that you can have the wedding of your dreams, the marriage of your dreams, what it is that you want to actually pursue. The one problem we have with that is when you look at a divorce, 76% of divorces are initiated by women, and of the 76%, 94% of those women are those with higher education. So now I did release an episode, Modern Independence and Dating, where I discussed the correlation between higher education and divorce, that this institution seems to be teaching something that is opposite to what we consider marriage. I will hope you guys listen to it because I don't want to really get back into that same study yet again. But I will say I am all for a woman pursuing higher education. I'm more concerned about the intent as to why you are pursuing this, right? Jordan Peterson addresses in his book, 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote for Chaos, where he disclosed that 80% of women usually pursue a field in healthcare, public administration, psychology, and or education. And then says, and I quote, "This is not good news for women, since women in higher education are finding it increasingly difficult to maintain a relationship of moderate duration, and in consequence are more inclined to hook up and have sequential hookups." What Jordan is telling us is that there seems to be a correlation with you prioritizing higher education, your success, and your inability to maintain a relationship because of that success. So then where do we go from here? It seems like 68% of us today want to get married. And yet it seems like there's a solid percentage of people that end up getting divorced. And going into school and pursuing a higher education just increases those odds. So Ariel, how can we escape this corrupt generation? And this is why we are going to dive into marriage. We're going to dive into the breakdown that God gives us of marriage, a biblical model of what marriage is, starting with this episode, which I titled Covenant in the Beginning. Hello, guys. Welcome to the Mill Press, a time capsule for all things Bible related. So, we have been breaking down the concept of marriage, divorce, and covenant throughout the Bible. And we have been releasing episodes that disclose and explain how marriage is and was after the fall, right? It has been an amazing journey. It has honestly helped me a lot to understand a lot of the things that happen today in our society when it comes to marriage, dating, sex, divorce, things that have become such almost like a norm in our society, right? Because we see 50% of people, 50% of marriages end up in divorce, right? We see everybody's affected. You see 83% of the people that are incarcerated come from single parent homes. And you see that there is a need for families to stay together, right? Throughout this process, I have been compiling everything the Bible says about marriage, trying to understand what it is that we have today and what it was that God intended. Well, I wanted to take this small chapter just to kind of evaluate some of the things that we have discussed, right? The fact is, when I consider this study and I consider the current standing of our marriages today, I do worry. I worry for the image that we're painting to the next generation. I worry for the women that are being indoctrinated to believe that independence and education is a way to fulfill their destiny. And when I say that, some women, they say like, Ariel, how can you say that? You're saying that marriage and bearing kids is the only destiny of a woman? Yeah, why not? You know, when we look at the data, you see that people tend to live longer, live healthier, live wealthier, their kids more successful when they have and come from a married home. Marriage is good for you. We see how in the Bible, we break down chapter 5, how you see people living for hundreds of years. And people was like, yo, that's an exaggeration. That's a typo. And it's like, well, I mean, I guess you can say that if you want, but isn't it crazy that the studies of today show that marriage makes you live longer? And the only thing you're doing in marriage is obeying what God said. So is it really so crazy to think that, hey, when you go back to the beginning, to the direct source of what marriage was intended to be, and you get the teaching from Him, the creator of life, you actually get to live longer? Is that really so crazy? Is it crazy that when you treat your body like a temple, you actually have a better mindset, a better lifestyle, you live longer, happier, better mental health? And it's just a simple matter of like, put into context what the Bible is saying, right? There's one thing that I keep repeating throughout this podcast, and it's an advice for women and men. And it's like, ladies, your bodies is not yours to give, it's yours to protect, right? And men, the body of a woman is not for you to take, it's for you to cover. That the training of keeping the purity of sexual intimacy is the training that will lead you to have a pure marriage, a protective marriage. Because nowadays we live in a society where the idea of divorce is so normal that we consider it to be of no value. And we see marriage from a legalistic point of view, right? And that's what we saw in chapter 4 of Genesis. We see Cain and his descendants treating marriage like a legal contract, to the point that his descendant takes on 2 wives. And it's the first time you see polygamy, right? Whereas the son that stood in the house, that received teaching from Adam, who received teaching from God, you see he's moving in marriage with purpose, right? I honestly was blown away, right? at what happens when we engage sexual activity, right, with a partner, right? Especially the difference between a man and a woman, because the the 2017 Medical Institute of Sexual Health released a study of modern neuroscience, and they explain how a woman during orgasm and during sexual intimacy, they release a a drug, right? A hormone called oxytocin. And this is the same hormone that you release whenever you breastfeed and when you give childbirth. Two other things that have to do with purpose. And it's saying when you engage a man sexually, this this hormone is released, and this is the hormone that deals with social bonding. That when you have sex with a man, you release this oxytocin hormone, and naturally, biologically, you make a bond with that person you engage with. And that bond will then determine your perception to everything else. That blew my mind, because as women go with a partner, they build bonds. And the fact is, it doesn't matter if your partner is bad. If you build a bond with the wrong partner who abuses you, that chemical in your brain is going to say, this is where you belong though, because you have built a bond. And then we connected how when men have sex, they release a specific hormone called vasopressin, which it's wild because this is also a bonding hormone. However, this hormone bonds in, it's mostly linked to aggression, that you bonding to the taking, like this is mine, and territorial behaviors. Like men bond in the having and women bond in the receiving. That it's wild, because when you look throughout the Bible, you see that Cain was taken hold of because by sin, and then he went to take hold of women, and we started breaking down character. And the whole point of all of this was understanding how dangerous it is to engage people that do not meet your character. That God has made marriage as the institution for you to produce life, right? And I started explaining how the fact is you can have different marriages. Just because you're married doesn't mean you're not sinning, right? Just because you're married doesn't mean you are doing God's will. Marriage can look different, and marriage does not always equal to covenant. And that blew my mind, because Jesus is asked the same questions that we asked today. Yo, like, what do you think about marriage? What do you think about divorce? Like, people are getting divorced. Moses said we can get divorced. And Jesus responds, man, it was not like this in the beginning. In the beginning, my father had a different plan. My father created covenant. My father said, be fruitful and multiply. But Cain, you see, he says he worked the land, but they produced no fruit. But he still multiplied. And it's like, this is why you see that there's marriages that end up and they're like, wow, there's no growth in intimacy. There's no growth in our relationship. There's no growth in our love. There's no growth as people. There's no growth here. And I don't feel it. I don't feel fulfilled here. And you see that your marriage is failing because you engage in marriage from such a broken, narrow point of view that you resemble Cain. The guy that killed his brother, left his father, left God's presence. Because for him, marriage was just a legal paper. Hey, everything that makes me a husband is written right here in this paper. Yeah, I might beat my wife. I might cheat on my wife. I might do X, Y, and Z. But I'm married to her. I wear the ring just like everyone else. Nah, this is not what God wanted. God wanted marriage to be fruitful. God wanted marriage to show a light to the world. God wanted marriage to be a way out of corruption. God wanted marriage to be a security, a legacy of Him all the way down to your son. That you see begins with God making Adam in His likeness and image. Then Adam has his son Seth, and it says He had him after his own likeness and image. And you see that there is a legacy of God descending from father to father to father to father. And it's just like, man, can we get back to the beginning? Can we start just protecting ourselves from engaging people that are not from your own tribe? That's honestly one of the biggest hints you can get from marriage. Don't date outside your tribe. If you are a Christian, a child of light, what are you doing with darkness? If you are trying to build a house, what are you doing with someone that's trying to build a car? It's like everything, like listen, the lie that opposites attract has been one of the biggest downfalls in marriage, because marriage is about unity, aligning to a common goal. Man, when you start investing into a common goal as a partner, man, babe, I'm struggling with this. I got you. Let's make it work together. When you start seeing the beauty of a husband devoting himself to you to the point that you don't have to worry to go and get a second, third, fourth job so that you get the joy of contentment from what your husband has provided. But we become so materialistic. It's not about who sits at the table. It's about what you bring to the table. And we forget, it doesn't matter how big your house is. Man, if that house is not filled with someone that loves you, if that house is not built with someone that appreciates you, that's horrible. That's not a house. That's not a life. That's not marriage. So I wanted to just really kind of break down and just kind of plead with some of you guys. Look at God and how he treats his church. Look how he was willing to die for his church, to cleanse us with his blood. That's why when you look through marriage in the Bible, it says that a husband's duty is to cleanse her with the word, that you can teach your wife, and in that teaching you make her more in the likeness of God, because you're growing and producing fruit of righteousness, that you are growing as a pastor, leader, teacher in your own house, so that you can then go in the world and do the same, so that a man can go ahead, be man, and make men. But nowadays, it's just like, I keep telling people, like, look, there's a reason why throughout this study we found how 80% of divorces are initiated by women, and of those women, 93% are those of higher education and salary. Because we are going into marriage with a backup plan. And then you wonder why it happened. You know what's funny? This whole chapter, this whole study begins with Cain and Abel bringing an offering. And I was making the point of how when you look at the offering from Abel, it's an offering of faith. He brings the firstborn of his flock, not knowing if there will be second, third, or fourth borns. He's saying, look, I'm going to give you this. I don't have a backup. Here it is. And it's like Cain brings an offering. He just picks whatever he has the most of. Here you go. You got your 10%. We're good. And it's like he gives from his abundance. That's Cain. Abel gives from his provision. He goes by it through faith. Let me tell you, if you're looking to get married and you are having doubts, I will worry for you to take a vow before God without understanding your first thing, the first decree of marriage is do not break faith. That I am going into this into my last day. That is my faith. I believe that even though I don't see it, I believe that's what I'm going to go for. Even through the hard days, I cling on to the fact that I will go ahead and love this woman until my dying breath. And woman, it will be like, I will commit myself to this man in the poorest of poor, because I am not here for his provision. I am here because of the character of him as a provider. Because wealth doesn't equal provision. A provider equals provision. It's about character. What is the character that you're going into this marriage? When you're going into this marriage, what is it that you want to bring to the table? Because I'm telling you, when you look through the Bible, what he wants you to bring It's a character. It's a character. Proverbs 31 says, "A wife of noble character who can find?" Because you gotta understand, when you look throughout everything that has to do with the Bible, you see Jesus died on the cross so that we can receive the Holy Spirit, who then gives us a new identity and character. And he's saying, I want marriage to show character. That's why I love when you get to chapter 6, because chapter 6 is the first time you see the concept of covenant. And I haven't broke it down just yet. We only released the last episode last week. But I love the concept of covenant in chapter 6, because you see the whole world is corrupted, right? You see there's figures named Nephilims, which means the fallen ones. I explain how this is humanity in a state of depravity, of everything that's godly, everything that's right and just and from God. It's almost as if we have forsaken the teachings of God. And it's such a heartbreaking chapter, because there's a point in there that says that God regretted making humanity. And we think about that, it was like, wow, look, he wish I was never born. And when we started breaking down the original Hebrew, and it's almost like God gave this sigh, like just broken. Like it's almost like you create the whole perfect house. You create a beautiful house for your spouse. The everything she ever wanted. You have the bed prepared. You come back from your honeymoon, and you're like, wow, I'm gonna have my people in my house. And then you go to the house, and you see your spouse with another man, destroying the very thing that you have built. And it says he's heartbroken. He regrets. The word regret is really heartbroken. It's like, damn my humanity. Damn daughter Earth. Right? Because the concept of daughters refers to the population. They're saying, damn, my people they have gone so astray. They deprived mind. It says every desire, every thought was always bent on evil all the time. Can you imagine that? Can you put yourself in God's shoes? He creates humanity perfect, and we sin against him, leave the garden. He still goes and invests as a father, teaches Adam how to go ahead and take care and work the land, teaches him how to be a man. And even so, you see that there's generations later, everybody has forsaken the teachings of God. And the world is full of sin. And everybody's just holding their fists up against God. I know better. I don't need you. I know how to marriage. I know. Listen, I love this woman. I'm a woman. I'm a married because that's love. That's what marriage is supposed to be, right? I don't care that this person is too young. I'm going to make them mine because that's what marriage is supposed to be. It's like, oh yeah, I don't really care about them, but they have wealth so they can take care of me. That's what marriage is. And we have corrupted marriage. It's such a broken chapter. It's a broken chapter, and it's a picture of all of us. And I love that, because that chapter shows you how God picks out Noah. And man, when you look at Noah, there was nothing special about Noah. There wasn't. You know, the one thing about Noah is that Noah was a sinner just like everyone else. Ariel, Noah wasn't a sinner. He was a righteous man. Nuh-uh. Go to the last episode. Listen to it. He was a man that understood his sin and also his need for repentance. Like the first thing Noah did, this righteous, perfect man, right? Because we want to say that. The Bible never said he was perfect. It said he was blameless, right? When you look through that, the first thing he did was offer up a sacrifice as soon as the flood happened. Why? Because he understood, man, I'm not perfect, but I serve a God who is. And this whole flood story, this whole marriage story is about him, not me. That's what I love about that. I love that God tells Noah, I'm going to make a covenant with you, right? And 2 chapters later, he says, okay, now I'm going to make a covenant. And I was like, wait, hold up, what? Because you said he was going to make a covenant when he entered the ark. But then you said, okay, now I'm going to establish my covenant when after he made a sacrifice. And I love that because it shows you that covenant is this way out of corruption. How do you escape this corrupted world, 50% divorce rate with God? I love that. How do you enter this marriage from God? With faith. That's how God set it up. And it says, what did he do? He says, I'm gonna make a covenant with you. You know what it's like? It's like a promise. It's like, you know what? Noah, I'm gonna make a covenant with you. I'm gonna establish a covenant. And the promise is as true as the fulfillment of it. A God of his own word. Like my promise is the same as if I have done it. That's how God is. That your word is bond. This is why you say your vows. That God is trying to show you a picture of who he is in marriage. And when you go in marriage in that faith, in that knowledge, in that understanding, in that livelihood and legacy, you see that there is growth, that there is fruit, that there is love and joy. It's just such an amazing picture. You know, marriage really is such an amazing concept that we have reduced to such a low standard. Every marriage is meant for covenant, but every marriage does not have covenant. You know, in the next chapter, I'm going to explain how when you get to Genesis 15, this is where you see the concept of covenant being so different from the concept of marriage in chapters 4 and 5. Because covenant was a way out of corruption from the sinful world, right? Notice how he was in the ark as the earth was flooded with water, which means what? He rose above the corruption of the world. Everybody was in a fallen state of depravity, Nephilims. And then God came and with water washed off that sinful nature, that sinful idea, that sinful history. And he says, I'm going to lift up the standard. I'm going to lift it up to covenant. And you know who it begins with? God. That marriage begins with people, right? But covenant begins with God. And you see that the same way that a husband is supposed to wash his wife with the word, that's a cleansing of the mind. That's teaching. That's understanding and accepting the teaching of your husband, which women, it will be hard to do if you have had many teachers. It will be hard for you if you consider yourself a teacher. I keep telling ya, a woman is the weaker vessel for your benefit because you're meant to be protected. That's not something to be ashamed of. That's something to accept and live by. Because a woman that is soft is a woman that is protected, right? But I love the picture that you get in the Noah story because you see the picture of God washing the world with water, which is symbolic of the word. And he's washing the world with water to cleanse us of this depraved state of marriage and sin and wickedness, right? But that wasn't good enough, right? Because then this is where you get to the picture of Jesus. Because when that wasn't good enough, he decided to send his son here to earth so that every divorced person can understand you have one partner that will never leave you nor forsake you. You have one person who rose onto the cross and died to wash you with water and his own blood. And as he washes you of your wicked mindset, your sinful desires, your sinful thoughts, he says, I'm going to go ahead and make you mine. Enter into a covenant with me. Though your father or your mother forsake you, I will never leave you. I make a new covenant with you. And if you come in, if you let me in, I will come in and I will make my dwelling with you. I will eat with you. That is the closest intimate moment you can have with someone, that you share the table. He says, hey, your husband maybe left you. I get it. Maybe you don't have the same table. If you make me your husband, church, I will come in and dine with you. I love that. I love that because when you take it back to the Psalms, it says, you prepare a table in the presence of my enemies. And I don't think we understand really what that means. It's not like the enemy is watching you eat and you're like, yeah, I'm covered. It's like when the enemy comes at you, in that table, you can grab the fruit of peace, security, of love, of protection. Everything you need is there at the table that God has prepared for you. And He's there with you. You know how this whole world experience ends? It ends with a wedding banquet that His church that has kept to His teaching, obey His commands, has listened to its husband, the Lord Jesus Christ. That this daughter, us, a humanity, a people, have chosen to make covenant with God and accept the way out that He has given us, so that we can be cleansed of our mind from the sinful state of being and become more and more like Him. And that we will be a church as a bride. And that we will walk down the aisle of our King. And that He will make us as His own. There is no Christian that is meant for singlehood. We all get married at the end. We all get a house at the end. We all get a family at the end. We all win at the end. He comes with His reward. Every promise fulfilled. What you have to ask is, what are you doing with what He has given you today? Lift up your marriage unto God so that He can lift you up within your marriage. So that you can grow within your marriage. So that you can be a light from your marriage. Show your kids, father them. Show your workers, your neighbors, your people around you what marriage from God looks like by the power of the one that made marriage and covenant. I wanted to take this time because it's so important to me that you understand this teaching is not just about what the Bible says. It's about your life. What are you giving? What are you giving back to God, the creator of your soul, who knows your every desire, thought, and mindset? And He said, if you give me that, you enter into a covenant with me, and I will show you greater things. I will show you things that no one knows about. I will show you a love that surpasses everything you ever experienced. I will give you a peace that surpasses all understanding. What can this world give you that can compare to that which God has prepared for you? I will ask you, if you don't know the love and the covenant and marriage that is being with God, ask Him, Lord, make me yours. Make me know of your love. Make me know of your covenant, that you will never leave me, not even death will do us apart. That's God. Ask Him. And I hope you guys continue listening to our study on covenant. It's been a road, but I think this little interlude was necessary for us to just really get to the bottom of what it is that we're trying to do here. So I hope you guys have enjoyed, and thank you for listening to this this podcast episode, and we'll see each other again next week.